Hello everyone, Grub here. With so many new people coming into the MechAssault community lately, I wanted to make a video as a simple introduction to each mech in this game. Now, me and Big Talk are already doing a video where we discuss these mechs in more detail, but for this video I just wanted to give a simple, short introduction to each mech for those players who are just getting into this game, who have never played it before, and who are sitting in this menu looking at all of these names going, what the heck do I pick? So, starting with the Atlas. The Atlas, it has a legendary reputation in Battletech, but it doesn't really live up to that in this game. It's good, and it's definitely intimidating to everything below it, but it's in its class, it just doesn't have enough firepower. It has 4 pulse lasers, 4 autocannons, and 2 missiles. 2 long-range missiles. And it has an anti-missile flare and the strongest armor in the entire game. Again, good, but if you want something of this caliber, it's better to just go with something like the Prometheus or the Ragnarok. Belial, sniper. This is a interesting take on the Uziel, where you basically swap your PPCs for Goskin. Something you should know if you're a fan of the MechWarrior games. The PPCs in this are not electrical beam weapons like they are in the rest of Battletech series. They are more like missiles. So the fact that you have a Uziel variant with Goskin cannons means a lot more in this game. The Belial also has a crossbow missile and a single pulse laser, which is practically useless. So this mech, you cannot really take on anything directly. You have to stay at the edges of combat, really use your mobility, and use those Gauss cannons at long range. It's very useful because it's the only Gauss cannon mech with jump jets and the only one that's this mobile, but you have to play it in a specific way. Bowman, cousin to the Catapult. It's a bit hit or miss. Some players find using Warhammer missiles to be very easy, whereas others find it to be extremely hard. The Bowman, yes, it has lasers and machine guns, but the main event is that it is a heavy mech with jump jets and Warhammer missiles, sorry. And it has an anti-missile flare. So, worth a shot, but more of an advanced mech, if you ask me. If you put this in the hands of a skilled player like Stomper, he can carry an entire team with Bowman and shift the balance of an entire match, but some other people can barely use it. Catapult. This mech is really easy to start with, but also has a very high skill ceiling. This is a mobile, heavy mech with jump jets. You have 4 pulse lasers and 4 long-range missiles. It's a potent loadout, and like I said, it is best used offensively as like a cover shooter, where you're using that mobility, spamming volleys of LRMs at your enemy, and really being an offensive, sort of a wall breaker type player. Corvus. This is a DLC mech. You only see this if you have the DLC installed. But this mech is practically useless in team destruction, or destruction in general. This does have a very, very specific niche in objective games, but in destruction, just pass this over. I love this mech, but it is objectively a bad mech for killing things. Cougar. The Cougar, it's the mascot of this game. It's the mech that's panning around behind the menu screen right now. It looks cool, but it just doesn't have the ability to back that up, sadly. It has 2 pulse lasers, 2 long-range missiles, and a single autocannon. But the big thing is, it doesn't have a defense ability to protect itself like every other mech in this class does. So it's, even in light-only matches, it feels a bit outclassed because of that lack of ability to be mediocre firepower and bad pieces. So generally pass this up. elemental, complete crap. This is... It's like a Master Chief suit in a game where the lightest mechs are 25 tons. So, yeah. Unless you're talking very specific game modes, just ignore this thing. Hackman. This one, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of skill to use right, but it is very fun if you use it right. It has no jump jets. It is very weak armor, but it has potent weapons for a mech that size. It is the fastest mech in the game, and it has stealth. So if you focus on flanking attacks, stealing salvage, opportunistic style attacks and attack runs, this can actually be very useful and very annoying to play against. That, like I said, takes a lot of practice. Probably not a good first mech. Hellbringer, this is a heavy mech with the armor of a medium mech with the weapons of a light mech. This thing is really, really underwhelming. The flamers don't have the same effect that they do in the mech warrior games, where they overheat other enemies. They serve as kind of a supporting weapon. In this game, they're just very, very weak, and the other weapons on this mech are actually extremely weak. I wonder what the heck you guys would be putting the weapon setup as it is. But anyway, definitely pass this one out. Kid Fox, like the Hackman, another very niche pick. This is probably the most skill-based mech in this entire game. You have to play stealthy, you have to hunt for salvage, you have to really go for only opportunistic attacks. It's a very specific playstyle and very indirect playstyle that's really not for everyone. If you want to see how this mech is played, I suggest you watch Stomper's video. I think Big Talk has a video on it as well at this point. But again, definitely not for a first-time player. This mech is basically a stick figure with a Warhammer missile launcher on it and a stealth system. The Loki, very fast for a heavy mech. The weapons are a little weak for a heavy mech, but it's so fast it almost acts like a medium mech, even though it doesn't have jump jets. It has 2 pulse lasers, 2 autocannons, and 3 crossbow missiles, or short-range missiles. So, this mech is kind of a more rational version of the Hackman. It's meant for hit-and-run attacks, stealing salvage from other mechs, and not really running directly at the enemy and engaging them, but more like flanking around and taking the opportunistic kills that you can take, cleaning up light or crippled mechs. So it's definitely a good choice if you have it. This is the Loki and the Hellbringer are also DLC alongside the Corvus and the Raven. Mad Cat, surprisingly versatile. This is a heavy mech, surprisingly fast for a heavy mech, but it also has PPCs and long-range missiles and a target jammer. This can form the core of a lot of team setups. These are versatile and, in my opinion, one of the easiest to learn on. Mad Dog is literally a worse Loki. If you have the Loki, there is no reason to choose the Mad Dog. And even if you don't have the DLC, the Mad Dog is pretty subpar. It has the same weapon loadout as the Loki, but far worse. And it also is a lot slower, and it doesn't have ability. So, generally pass this one out. Owens. The Owens is an interesting place, because this is basically a Hackman, but worse. It's really fun to run around with machine guns and target jammer, especially in light matches, but to be honest, the Hackman is just better if you know what you're doing, and if you want the run-and-gun, machine gun, up-close kind of style, just take the Thor instead. It has the exact same weapons the Owens does, except it has more armor, it's more survivable, and it has lasers, which are not the best at long range, but at least it gives it some long range option. Whereas the Owens is extremely weak. It's fast, but not really that effective. Prometheus. Alongside the Ragnarok, this is the best mech in the game. Pretty much everyone agrees that the Prometheus and the Ragnarok stand above everything else as the two best mechs in the entire game. Prometheus is a variant of the Atlas, so it has very strong armor. Not as strong as the Atlas, but very strong armor. And it has Gauss cannons, so the best long-range weapon, and Warhammer missiles, so the best close-range weapon at the same time. And triple lasers, which kind of pale in comparison to the other two, but they're still strong. And it has an anti-missile flare as well to protect itself from missile-based weapons like the Catapult. Very strong. It's slow, but very strong. Puma. Light and versatile stealth mech. I don't really play in the style of this mech in multiplayer, so I couldn't really speak to its full potential, but it has a single PPC, 2 short-range missiles, and 2 machine guns. So it's versatile at multiple ranges, and it is light on its feet and stealthy. This is the better Cougar. This is variant of the Cougar, and it is better in every way. So just pick the Puma if you want to play that mech. Ragnarok. You'll only see this mech in this menu if you have completed the entire campaign. This is a plot device in the campaign. So you will only see this if you've beaten it. But, saying that, it is also almost equally as strong compared to the Prometheus. It also has the Gauss cannons. It has long-range missiles, 4 of them. So it's equivalent to something like a Mad Cat or a Catapult. But it also has the lava gun, which shoots 3 explosive shots in rapid succession. And it has an interesting sort of pseudo-invincibility shield, in that you can hit your ability, it'll deploy a bubble shield for about a second, and then it takes like a second and a half to recharge. So it's a very short-lived invincibility ability that you can use to block incoming volleys of missiles and stuff like that. Another strong pick, if you have it unlocked. Again, this and the Ymir will only show up if the profile that you're using has beaten the campaign all the way through. Raven, another DLC mech, and honestly, pretty terrible. This is meant to be a more combat-focused, heavier armed variant of the Corvus, but when you're talking a mech this light, it's just not... that's not the role that you should be going for. And if you want a stealthy attack mech like this, just use the Puma instead. It has jump jets, it has more armor, and it has the ability to jump jet as well. So, pass up on Raven. Summoner. Jack of all trades. This mech isn't seen very often because generally every other mech that is stronger in specific roles, but this mech does a lot of things kind of well. I guess that's the best description. It has 4 pulse lasers, 2 auto cannons, and a single Warhammer missile. It's slow and beefy, but not overly so as well. And it has no ability, unfortunately. With the extra firepower, it kind of makes up for it. The Thor, the up-close gun mech. This mech is defined by its 4 machine guns, but it also has 2 crossbow missiles and lasers to give it a little bit of range, although not much. It also has target jammer, so you can really close distances and attack this has to be a very offensive style mech. You really need to get into the enemy's face to use this effectively, but it's fun to some people. I'm not one of them, but I have seen it used very effectively. Timberwolf. The Timberwolf is a Mad Cat variant. It is literally a giant Belial. I can't really think of any other way to describe it. It has the same exact weapons, just more of them. And it's way slower, but it has more armor. You don't really see this all that much because, again, it is literally a Belial without its ability. If you try to use it like a Belial, you're going to get killed very quickly because you don't have the mobility. And if you try to use it like a close-range mech, there's just a lot of better options to it. So I don't really know what to say on this one. Generally pass it up, but it's not to be underestimated either. Uller. This mech only exists to give you an easy mech to kill in the campaign, and it really shows. This is probably the worst mech, other than the Elemental, this is probably the worst mech in this game. 2 lasers, a single short-range missile launcher. Like, even the battle armor in this game has 2 missile launchers. So, it does have a flare, but it's surprisingly slow for a mech of its class, and it has no armor, and it has pathetic weapons. If you like the design of the Uller, just use the Kit Fox instead. It's very skill-based, but at least it can be effective, unlike Uziel. Like I said, important note if you didn't catch it earlier, to those who have played Battletech before, PPCs in this game are not electrical beams. They are more like missiles. They are charge-up missile weapons. They're very powerful, and if you use them offensively at close range, they're very good. But you have to be aware that this is not going to be a long-range mech like the Belial. To trade off that long-range ability, it has the PPCs, which are more powerful in close range, and it has an anti-missile flare, unlike the Belial, to protect itself. So it's much more offensively minded. You almost have to play this thing offensively, but you can be very useful if you know what you're doing. Vulture. It's almost in the same spot the Atlas is. It does okay, but literally every other missile mech does better. It's a good mech. If you really, really want to use the Vulture, you can use it, but just pick a Catapult, or a Mad Cat, or even a Ragnarok. They all have the same exact missile loadout, but they have better secondary weapons and better defensive abilities. And lastly, the Ymir, the variant of the Ragnarok. This thing is honestly pretty terrible. The weapon, you would think that because it was derived from the Ragnarok, that it would be extremely, extremely powerful, but it has weapons that are objectively worse than the Ragnarok is, and it overheats extremely quickly. So it requires a lot of upgrades and salvage to get going well, and even amongst experienced players, it's very finicky to get working right. Definitely not a mech you should be picking casually, if that makes sense. And there's just better options out there. So that's it. That's all of the mechs in MechAssault 1. I feel I should clarify before I go that if you heard something or you saw something that you think looks cool or that you want to try, I'm not trying to dissuade you from trying any of these mechs. I just wanted to let you know what is the most effective and what is not. This game is not very balanced. So if you want to use the Raven or something, feel free, but just do so at your own peril. This has been Grub, and see you later.